Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. You know, we've all heard this expression before, and as much as I want to believe it to be true, my life experience, and I'm sure yours too, tells us that words can hurt even more. Well, maybe not in the same sense of a 2-ton boulder coming crushing down on my leg, but I tell you the truth. Some of the things that have been said to me, and I know words that I've said to others, sure felt as if it left eternal pain and scarring. Thanks for joining with me today as we dig into this familiar phrase and the biblical truth we find behind it. If you haven't yet already, we would love it for you if you could like and subscribe to our channel. It really allows us to bring more hope to those around us. All month long at Kids Point, which is our children's program here at the Point Church, we've been talking about responsibility. And responsibility is showing you can be trusted with what is expected of you. And I thought it'd be a great experience if we talked about the exact same topic right here in Big Kid Church, as I like to call it, because I think something special happens when the church learns together. And one of the things that God expects of us is to use our words wisely. And he used a man named Paul to remind us of that. You see, Paul was a man who used to condemn and imprison people for even speaking the name of Jesus. He would spew hatred of Jesus and his followers, but Christ met him on the street and changed his life forever. And all he could do after that was praise the name of Jesus. See, Paul would go to city preaching about what Christ had done and had started multiple churches along the way. He wrote different letters to these churches to remind them of why they existed, to correct them who were falling away, and to remind them of the way that they should behave. And one of the churches he had started was in the city of Ephesus. In his letter that he wrote to the Ephesians, he reminds them of the character that they should be portraying. The way someone talks speaks huge volumes of what type of person they are. And the verse that we're going to be looking at today is not the largest verse in the world, but there's so much truth packed into it. And this is where we're going to park our car. He says this in Ephesians 4, verse 29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. If I was to take a random poll of you online, I'm sure it would rate 100% of people have let unwholesome talk come out of our mouths in the past. You see, one of my favorite things to do in life is make people laugh. Ever since I was a kid, I would try and find opportunities throughout the day to do just that. I would do silly acts, I would tell jokes, I'd make wild sounds, but eventually as I got older, I would find different ways of making people laugh. I would move into saying things that probably weren't the most appropriate. In high school, I used to love listening to a guy named Dane Cook, and he was a comedian who I found hilarious and would repeat some of his bits to my friends that I would never do today. Unwholesome talk definitely came out of my mouth, especially back then. Has there ever been a moment in your life where the instant certain words came out of your mouths, you immediately regretted it? I know it may be hard to believe that there would ever be a time where I would say something that was not actually as funny as I thought it was going to be. Probably one of the most influential and gear-changing moments like this happened my junior year in college. So I was outside in the courtyard, in my element, hanging out with friends. I was making people laugh by the things I was doing and saying, but it was the last thing I said that changed it all. See, I had noticed that one of my friends had gotten a haircut over the lunch break. And instead of complimenting them like you probably should, I yelled out a derogatory comment about how it looked, hoping to get some laughs out of his expense. See, guys typically do that sort of thing. I find you would rarely hear girls poking fun at each other as a joke between two people. But I didn't get the laughs that I wanted. And what I got was a rude awakening. No one laughed. Everyone just kind of looked blanket-eyed right at me. And I had the senior class president, who was my friend at the time, turn to me and call me out in front of what felt like the whole school, that what I had said was not actually funny, and that was actually hurting the name of Christ by behaving like that. Oh, wow. Talk about a slap in the face of truth. So why is it important to not let any unwholesome talk come out of our mouths? In Proverbs 21:23, it reads this: those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. Calamity is an event causing great and often sudden damage or distress, a disaster. The practical side is that it stops sudden damage or disaster from happening when we guard our tongues, when we don't say unwholesome things. How many times during your marriages or relationships with others have you said something simply for getting a reaction or simply to have the last word? I think we would all raise our hands. Carrie, raise your hand. Listen, I'm guilty of this on so many occasions. And what normally happens because I chose not to guard my mouth or tongue? Disaster. And the need for a lot more collateral damage cleanup is required. Pastor Kevin talked about a couple weeks ago during his Fearless series that the tongue is a powerful tool. It can be used for good, but also for destruction. That's the practical side. The spiritual side, when we choose not to guard our mouths and tongues, when we choose to speak in a way that is disrespectful, use profanity every other word, is that people are not going to see you as a Christ follower or stop seeing you as one based upon the way you talk. Even though you may say you are, they won't believe you. Use your words wisely. If we are people who are constantly cursing people out, tearing people down, spewing hatred upon people who have different views than we do, why would they think that there's something different about you or me, that we have Christ leading our way? The U.S. election brought a lot of this to light for me. Reading and watching stories of supposed Christ followers on both sides of the coin cursing each other out, calling each other names and degrading one another based solely upon who they were voting for was ridiculous. If I wasn't a Christian today, and if I didn't have the strong faith as I do, there would have been times like these that would really have made me question if there was anything different about becoming a Christ follower based solely upon what people were saying. See, Matthew 15:18 says this, "But the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them." See, here's the thing about our mouths and our hearts. There is deep correlation between the two. I want you to think of one of the sweetest persons you know. You could use me for an example. It could be your grandmother, your mother, a friend, or an old teacher. I want you to think of the kind words they would say to you growing up. Words that really built you up and made you feel great about who you were as a person. And for me, it was my grade 1 teacher, Miss Wholesome. She was the best. She would always know exactly what to say when you're feeling down and always use her words in the nicest possible way. Now picture that person in your mind yelling out the most inappropriate and profane things you could possibly think of. Did you do it? You might have to wash your brain out, but here's the thing. How unnatural was that picture? What we say shows us what's happening in our hearts. We've heard the expression before, hurting people hurt people. And most time that hurt comes from the words that they said to you, which we know relates to their hearts. And it was so easy to hurt people with our words and to speak in ways that only tear people down. But what do you want to be known for? Someone who speaks terribly about others, someone who gossips at work, someone who tears down others behind their backs? Or do you want to be known for that person who brings the truth and love to conversations? Who people know they can count on for comfort in the words you're going to say? If we could learn to guard our tongues and our mouths, I think we could really avoid a lot of heartache in our lives. Using our words wisely means to honestly think before we say. Proverbs 13:3 says, "Those who guard their lips preserve their lives, but those who speak rashly will come to ruin." There was a moment in my life where when I spoke too rashly, almost came to ruin. My wife Carrie will contest that I'm not always funny. I know, as I said, it's hard to believe that sometimes I say things without thinking. I'm not sure where she gets that rationale from, but there was a time when Carrie had been working out, and one of her most noticeable features when she works out is that her legs get really strong. They get really strong looking. And I had noticed, and I thought I would, take the opportunity to compliment them, using my words wisely. And I told her that I really liked her thunder thighs. I found out pretty quickly that the term thunder thighs was not an endearing term, that it didn't mean they looked strong. I never fully understood the saying apparently, and she immediately let me have it and proceeded to tell me that's not what it means. See, my lips were not guarded, and I almost lost my life because of it. But thinking through what you're going to say to someone is a habit that I think we all need to work better at. Just think what could happen if we didn't speak our frustrations to someone rashly and we actually thought before we spoke. I know me saying all of this seems simple and you heard it all before, but I know there's people watching who are just like me, who know they need to think more before they say, who truly know the power of words, yet sometimes choose to use them in a way that hurts people. The words you choose to speak can break relationships. Yes, sticks and stones can break your bones, but an unbridled tongue can destroy the deepest part of someone's soul. With the advent of social media, people have become a lot braver when it comes to speaking their minds to people and about people. There's no more safe zones for adults, and especially teens. You used to be able to escape the words that break you by leaving your workplace or leaving school, but through social media, words can always find you. And if we practice not letting unwholesome talk come out of our mouths, the culture shift that would happen would be absolutely amazing. So we need to use our words wisely. Don't let unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. Number 2, use your words to build others up. The second part of this verse says, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs. Words, as we know, are powerful. We know that what we say can destroy relationships. We've all been there. But what if we focus on how to use our words to put them back together? Using our words only for what is helpful and to build others up. There's something natural built into us that responds positively to kind and encouraging words. When was the last time you used your words to build someone up? Honestly, when was the last time you went out of your way and thanked someone for doing something? Or complimented someone when they most definitely weren't looking for one? I love my kids, and I'm really loving the stage that my 3-year-old daughter Ren is at right now. The things that come out of her mouth at times are wild and almost make me want to pee my pants. But the one thing I'm proud of right now is that 9 out of 10 times she isn't peeing the bed at night. And I try to remember to congratulate her as much as I can on not peeing the bed. Sometimes I wish Carrie would do that for me, but that's a whole other story. But it is honestly a simple thing to do, but when you use words that build people up, you build a certain confidence in them that wouldn't normally be there or even thought of if you weren't making a big deal about them. There are times in the morning that without prompting, she'll come downstairs and she'll tell me, Daddy, I didn't pee the bed. And she's looking for a positive response from me. But here's the key. When she does end up peeing the bed, it would be easy for me not to say kind words and say the exact opposite and to shame her for doing so, but that's obviously not kind. I would never want to do that. But for us teens and adults, when someone messes up, we can be easily tempted to take that road of calling them out, asking how could they ever do something like that. But when we use our words wisely, by using them for what is helpful to build them up, it makes our relationships stronger. It helps build them back up. When I made that joke in college and embarrassed myself, and honestly the name of Christ, and my friend called me out for it, he did it in a way that was building me up and helping me build my character. I may not have appreciated it right then and there, but I knew it was said out of love and respect, not to make him feel better about himself. It's so easy, especially online, to want to call people out for being nuts. But what if we change our approach on how we see the world around us? Instead of us thinking that God has placed us here to be the judge, jury, and executioner of people's actions and words, and having the need to tear people down, what if we took the opportunity to see the good in people and call them out on it? There have been times in my life where things were said to me that still feel fresh as if they were said yesterday. But you know what ones speak louder? The ones that were positive. Using our words wisely by building others up can literally change lives. And it saddens me so much on how many kids are growing up today not hearing the words, I love you. One thing that Ren and I do each night is before bed, she runs down the hallway and knocks me over with the biggest hug ever, and we tell each other that we love each other. Even if we're just in the middle of after having a fight and she's upset, I'm upset, we always make sure that we say we love each other. And I love whispering to her to come here because I have a secret. And it's always the exact same secret. I love you and I think you're the prettiest girl in the world. And the smile on her face is always huge. She knows what I'm going to say before I even say it. And I don't ever want my kids growing up not knowing if their dad actually loved them. Who is someone today that you know you need to do a better job at building up with your words instead of tearing them down? Is it one of your kids? Is it a classmate? Is it your spouse that you seem to be just butting heads with lately? There's someone in your life that needs to hear from you and be built up by your words because we know they're powerful. Use your words wisely. So use your words wisely by don't speaking unwholesome words and by building others up. When we use our words wisely by building others, relationships that were once shattered can be mended again. And I'm sure if we all sat down and thought that there's something that was said to you years and years in the past that you're still holding on to. Words that were said that broke you to your most inner core. You know firsthand that words have the power to do so, but the words that we choose to say each day can mend those once broken relationships. This letter that Paul wrote to the Ephesians was practical back then, and it seems even more practical today. The practice of using your words wisely is a daily battle for some. The amount of things that go through my head that I want to say out loud or online that should probably never be said would surprise you. And I know some of my friends, my closest friends and coworkers are hearing this and they're like, probably asking themselves if what I do say is premeditated. I can't imagine what he's not saying. For this week, I want to challenge you to use your words wisely. When you're in a heated argument with a parent or spouse, pause, think, then say. Say with me. Pause, think, say. It sounds like such an easy task, but believe me, it's a challenging one. But I also want to challenge you to find 3 people this week who you can build up with your words. Pause, think, say. As we heard today, we know that words are powerful, but let's start using them in a way that builds instead of destroys. I just want to take this opportunity now just to pray for you guys and for me, honestly, that this week that we'll use our words wisely. Let's pray. Father, guys, thank you so much for this time where we get to look at these verses, God, that talk so clearly about using our words wisely. God, I just pray that you'll help us in our workplace or at home, God, when we are in arguments, God, or when we're feeling that tension build, God. Pray you'll help us to pause, think, then say words that are happening, God. God, I pray that if there's someone in our lives right now that we have said things to that we know are hurtful, God, I pray you'll give us the courage to find those people, God. Seek them out, God, to seek forgiveness so that we can build relationships again. So God, I pray that this week, once again, that you'll just help us to use our words wisely, God. Help us to pause, think, and say before we do anything this week.